Friends, I want to talk for a moment about the concept of our fellow Jews who are anti-Zionists. The conversation is radically different today than it was 3 years ago, than it was 80-something years ago. Let's start with what brought me to all this today. I was standing near an anti-Israel protest, and I was attacked by a group of people, except this time they used anti-Zionist Jews to come at me. Now, I often monitor or look at these protests to make sure that there's no anti-Semitism, to see that it's not anti-Semitic, really to stand against the hate movement that the Free Palestine movement has unleashed on the Jewish people. But it comes primarily from a perspective of anti-Semitism and the assault on our people that has been taking place since October 7th. So, that being said, when I come to a protest like that, I'm not there to fight with other Jews. I'm not there to argue about what they think. It's not relevant. It's not the point. But it doesn't mean they feel this way. So they come at me, they attack me, and one of them assaults me. And then the person who assaults me, screams, "Are you even genetically Jewish to be here?" Okay, now, why was that so striking? Because it showed me what anti-Zionism has become today. It's most often people who don't have the religious component of Judaism. It's not people who are very devoted to the Jewish side of Judaism. So their Jewish identity is not a religious one, the same way, say, someone with a kippah, or someone observing the Sabbath, or someone who's very dedicated to other parts of the Jewish faith. So they don't have that. They don't have the Jewish religion. Okay. But Judaism doesn't have to be just religion. It can be a national identity. You feel solidarity with other Jews. You are part of a Jewish people. You feel connected to other Jews, to the history of the Jewish people. But they don't have that either. They don't have the national identity, because you don't have to believe in the state of Israel or Zionism to have Jewish solidarity, to say, okay, there are 7 million Jews living in Israel. They're being attacked. My heart is with them. There are Jewish students being assaulted on campus. My heart is with them. There are Jewish people who have fled persecution in North Africa. My heart is with them. They don't have that. So what do they have? They don't have the religion. They don't have the national identity. They definitely don't believe in the epitome of Jewish national identity being the state of Israel. They definitely don't have that. So what are we left with? No religion, no national identity. What they are left with is the genes. And that is, they were born with certain genes that connect them to the history of our people. And that's what they have. And so the question is, what do they do now with these genes? They have Jewish genes, and they don't know what to do with it, because they don't want the religious side, they don't want the national side, and they're stuck. So what do? So occasionally they'll do the cultural stuff. Fine, that's nice, but anyone can do the cultural stuff. So what do? They go to the genetics, which is, by the way, astonishingly racist. Because to me, if someone converted to Judaism yesterday, a proper conversion, and they are part of the Jewish people, then I don't care if they have Jewish genes or not. They are part of my people. It makes zero difference to me what someone's genetics are, as long as they are Jewish. I don't really care how they became Jewish. Genetics, not genetics. But to these folks, it's all about genetics, which is an incredibly racist concept if you think about it. Now, what do they do with those genetics? So if someone decides, okay, I have these genetics, I'm not particularly attracted to the religion, the faith, the national identity, that's their choice. But what we are seeing today is a deeply troubling phenomenon of people weaponizing their Jewish genes, weaponizing their genetics against their own people. They are weaponizing their genetics, showing up at anti-Israel protests, saying, oh, this is not anti-Semitism, it's just anti-Zionism. They don't have almost anything else. And then what they're doing is they are weaponizing their genes against their very own people, the people who share those same genes. And so that's something new. And the reason it's popular is because of the branding strategy, which, by the way, is a brilliant strategy and a smashing success of the pro Palestine movement, which says, okay, we're not going to be anti Semitic because we know that's socially unacceptable. We will brand ourselves as anti Zionist, not anti Jewish. And so what do? We bring a fig leaf and we'll bring these guys who are genetically Jewish to side with us, and we will use them to shield ourselves from criticism and weaponize them against the rest of the Jews. Now, if someone has Jewish genes and they're not Zionist, they're not religious, they're doing their own thing, fine, that's one thing. If someone has the Jewish genes and they decide to be vocally anti-Zionist, okay, that's another approach. But this is a whole new level. These are people who are going to take their Jewish genes and show up at a protest, show up at a rally, and actively use their genes to undermine the safety and existence of their fellow Jews. And that is appalling. That is absolutely shocking and morally reprehensible. And I hate to say this, but we will see a lot more of it in the coming years. It's just something we're going to see in the coming years. So you would think, okay, this is shocking. It's new. It's not that new. And let me share with you my family history with this. The communist regime, when it came into power in 1917, my family was living in Russia. And like, I'm sure, by the way, half of the Jewish people have some grandparent that was living in Russia at the time. And what happened is they declared a war on all religions. To be fair, not they were equal opportunity offenders, but all religions. They declared war on the Russian Orthodox Church, on Catholics, evangelical, everyone. So, in order to crack down on religion, what they did, the communists, the Marxists, the Leninists, the Stalinists, whoever they were, they created a body called the Yevsektia, which is the Jewish section of the Communist Party. And they took Jewish people whose job it was to turn on their own people, not for any major incentive. Remember, this is communist Russia. This is really a lot of these people were ideologues. And they systemically made sure that every synagogue, every cheder, every Jewish school, every kosher butcher, every single aspect of Jewish life, every mikveh ritual bath, everything was shut down. And here's where it gets personal. They also made sure that my great-grandfather, Rabbi Eliezer Pupko, the chief rabbi of the Russian city of Velizh in Smolensk, they made sure to send him to Siberia 4 times. On the 4th time, he narrowly escaped with the help of our family in the United States. And that's how he came here. And that's how our family was saved. They saved us. But short of this extraordinary intervention of my family living in the United States, the Raskus family, very special people, very good people who literally, all of my family owes their life to them. My great-grandfather would have perished in Siberia. And so that happened. And we don't study it so much because there's so much that happened. There's obviously the Holocaust. And by the way, many of these Yevsektia members, tragically, I will say even, did die in the Holocaust when the Germans took, in Operation Barbarossa, they took Eastern Europe. But we stopped talking about this concept. But it's an important concept. The idea that there have been Jews who saw their racial identity as grounds to persecute and ruthlessly go after Jewish cultural life and go after Jewish religious life is something we need to remember because it is resurfacing right now. Now, I'm not going to say this in their defense, but they do it to conform with society. They do it for a reward, just like many other unfortunate situations, people did things for rewards. They say, okay, they read the room. There's so much anti-Semitism. They say, why should I go with my fellow Jewish friends with a yarmulke and be persecuted? Let me go with the persecutors. Not a good idea. History was usually not kind to people like that, even though, again, usually once the event was over, we've had to deal with other things, but it has not been kind to them. So, to anti-Zionist Jews, I say, if you are genetically Jewish, congratulations, but that is no excuse to weaponize your genes against your fellow Jews. And just remember the history. And if you want to have your own opinions about Israel, that's your right, 100%. But it doesn't mean you can use and weaponize your own identity against your very own people.